You're watching Fugitive Redeye, and welcome to another recut of old content. Today I thought I'd start doing compilations of my video game reviews. And to start off with Volume 1 here, we got my Games with Gold reviews I did. I only ended up doing 3 of these, but the idea to do reviews of the games with gold you would get on Xbox Live started because of my friend Gaming Retextured, who did Games with Gold reviews back when he had content on his channel. I actually was involved in a couple of those reviews, but it's been a long time. All of those reviews are gone because he did delist all of his content. But that said, that's why I ended up doing Games with Gold reviews myself, but I only ever ended up doing 3 of them. So that's what these 3 are. These are from Gen 2 of the channel, so they were made in Upload Studio, so the volume control and quality may not be the best, but there you go, let's just jump into it. You are watching Fugitive Redeye, and this is my first ever Games with Gold review. A friend of mine, who goes by the YouTube name Gaming Retextured, used to do these all the time. However, he doesn't upload anymore, and I thought, why the hell not, I'll do one. I don't plan on making this a regular series on my channel. I really will only do this if the game with gold looks interesting, and this one did. So I'm gonna here do a little bit of a review about the new free game with gold to see if anyone wants to give you guys an idea if you want to get it. The game right now, as you can tell, is Murdered Soul Suspect. It's a game where you play as the ghost of this detective who's hunting down his killer. It's kind of a story-based, almost like a point-and-click game. It's very reminiscent of games like Telltale Games or Heavy Rain, with a major difference being you don't really have much say on what happens in the story. It's all very linear, but that's still fun. Now, there are still side quests and things you can find when exploring levels. Let me just get the negative stuff out of the way first, because I really do like this game, but I'm just going to get some of the nitpicks out of the way. So, first off, as you can tell, the graphics aren't anything to write home about. This game was on Xbox 360 as well, so I'm willing to bet it looked pretty much the same on the 360. Also, like I said, you don't have much say on what happens in the story, and when you make a wrong decision when trying to solve a case, it doesn't punish you in any way, it just lets you know that you made the wrong decision, with the exception of the last level, but then you can just replay it, because it just counts you as dying if you mess up. So, overall, the game's pretty good. The voice acting also isn't anything spectacular, but, overall, it's a really fun game. It's a very, like I said, a very story-driven game, reminiscent of Telltale Games or Heavy Rain, things like that. I'd say if you wanted to compare it to anything, it's most similar to maybe Jurassic Park the game, at least in the way it plays. However, there are a lot of things that set it apart from that. It has its own little elements, like it's also kind of a stealth game, because you have to sneak around and execute demons if you don't want them to kill you. So, this game's pretty fun. You can run through walls, you can possess people, you can teleport. You learn some of these moves later on in the game. Another kind of negative thing is the game is incredibly short. I beat it in like 8 hours within like the first couple days I had it. I played it for about 8 hours at the most and beat it. I'd say if I did all the side quests and got every collectible, I could have probably spent maybe 10. I think it really just depends. I mean, again, I don't think it would have been that hard if I would have just kept looking, but I wanted to keep playing the game. Another nitpick I do have is you're unable to go back and replay levels. I mean, you can go back to previous locations until you get to the last level. Once you get to the last level, you can't go back, and that kind of pisses me off for a couple of reasons. Number one, you can't go back, so you can't go back and get all the collectibles and side quests. Plus, there's no free roam mode after you beat the game. Once you beat it, it's over, and if you try to reload, it'll reload you on the last level. So, if you wanted to play, you have to create a new game. Not to mention, you can't create multiple saves, so once you create a new game, you overwrite your original save. It is a bit irritating, but again, the game's so short, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. It's overall a really fun game, and it's free with gold, so why the hell not get it? I really enjoy it, and if you guys like story-based games, then it's a very good one to play. Again, there are a lot of games out there that are better. Like I said, Telltale Games are probably better, but I did like this story, and it was a nice concept to play as a ghost cop and shit. It's pretty fun. I do think that it's probably not for everyone. If you're expecting a lot of action and a lot of big gameplay, then it's probably not for you. But if you're just looking for a fun little story that's a fun concept, then you'll probably enjoy it, as long as you can, like I said, tolerate some of the nitpicks that I pointed out earlier. One other thing is, the controls are fairly good, however, there's a couple of times where it's very precise for you to actually interact with something. You have to be standing just by it, or just to the left of it, or just to... Like, you have to be in a very specific place to interact with certain objects, so that can be kind of a pain in the ass. But overall, this is probably one of the best games with gold I've played, just because there's not usually a lot of great ones out there, but... You are watching Fugitive Redeye, and I decided to do another Games with Gold review. As I mentioned in the previous review, I got this idea for a series from a friend of mine who used to do these all the time. However, I myself will only do it if the game seems interesting enough for me to download in the first place. This one, again, I decided to download. So, it's December, and the free game this month is Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition. Now, partially, this does feel like kind of a cop-out, because they did do the original Sleeping Dogs free with gold on the 360 a while back. However, I never downloaded it at the time because I didn't have the hard drive space. Not to mention, I honestly think it's a really good game, that being said, because it does come with all the DLC and everything, which it originally did not, as far as I know. Sleeping Dogs actually was started as part of the True Crime franchise, but then they renamed it Sleeping Dogs and got rid of the whole True Crime aspect of it, so it's basically a spiritual successor now. It was in development for a very long time, and in fact, it actually turned out really well for a game in development as long as it was, because a lot of games that get in prolonged development have a lot of issues, i.e. Duke Nukem Forever or No Man's Sky. But this game is really fun. If you're a fan of games like True Crime, Grand Theft Auto, Saints Row, things like that, it's a very similar game. In Sleeping Dogs, you take the role of an undercover cop, Wei Shin, who has infiltrated a group of triads, and you try to rise to the top. I haven't actually beat the game yet, but I'm very far in it. Some aspects are a little bit repetitive, but I think that can be true with almost every video game. I do think this is a really fun open-world game, and I've been playing the shit out of it the last few days. And I mean, really, I don't think there's any reason to complain about a free game unless it's utter shite, which this is obviously not. This is a very good game, and if you haven't played it, I recommend downloading it. And as I did mention, it contains the 2 DLC packs for Sleeping Dogs. I haven't played either one yet, because I'm still playing the main campaign. It's March, and the new game right now is Layers of Fear. I went into this game completely blind, not knowing at all what it was, but I'm going to go ahead and give an attempt to describe it as simply as possible. Layers of Fear is an investigative, immersive, first-person scary story. You take the role of an artist, whose name I don't know yet. I don't know if you figure it out later in the game. I'm on the final chapter, but I haven't beat it quite yet. As you progress through the game, you gather clues to give you the plot, as well as to help you progress. The further you get in the game, the more and more you paint a painting, and the further you progress, the more the painting progresses as well. The gameplay is mainly just you wandering around a big mansion with a lot of creepy stuff and clues. You're just collecting clues to help you progress. There's also some puzzle solving involved. Very simple stuff, but puzzle solving nonetheless. Now, the game itself is awesome. I absolutely love the atmosphere of this game. It's gloomy, it's immersive, it's fun. The puzzles are fun to figure out, and it's fun to read the clues and just explore. Granted, the game is incredibly linear. It's still very explorative in feeling to me, just because you have to look around the room and open every cabinet if you want to make sure you find everything. Most of the charm of this game comes from the gloomy atmosphere, like I said. It builds up kind of a feeling of tension and isolation. If I had one major criticism, I don't much care for the jump scares they have. There's not that many of them, but the ones that they do have just kind of meh. The thing I like about this game, as opposed to most survival horrors of today, is this one's not just a survival horror game. It's an investigative game. It kind of reminds me of Murdered Soul Suspect in that light. Albeit, I think, a much more tense setting and a much more alone feeling to it. One of the more interesting features about the game is sometimes you'll come through a door, explore a room, and then go back through the same door, and it will take you to a completely different location than you came from. The hallways are constantly changing to different areas, and sometimes you'll even go in rooms that don't make any logical sense, such as one that's like thousands of stories high with like floating bookshelves and stuff. Also, some of the puzzles kind of reminded me of the game Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth, albeit the puzzles in Layers of Fear are much, much easier than that game. One other thing that does kind of irritate me is, for one, anytime you enter a room, the door will usually lock behind you, which I'm okay with. However, there's a couple instances where you're not sure if you're supposed to go to the other room to get something to solve the puzzle in one room, and if you're not, and you leave the room, then the door locks behind you and you can't go back in. For instance, there's a part with a Ouija board where you have to put in a phone number that you've got through the previous puzzle, however, you don't know the last digit. And there was another door open, so I went into that room thinking maybe I would get the last digit, but no, the door locked behind me and I couldn't go back to the Ouija board. Also, you can die from the jump scares in the game, obviously. I don't know if the deaths are avoidable. I know a couple of them are, but there's a lot of deaths I feel just kind of happen regardless. Luckily, when you die in this game, it doesn't start you over. You just wake up in the same room you're in, or you just wake up in the next part of the story. Now, like I said, I'm not too keen on the jump scares, because jump scares are kind of played out, but again, they're not a major feature of this game, so they don't kill it. However, even though I don't like the jump scares, I do kind of like the parts where you see the people run through a hallway or something and you follow them, something like that. I just don't particularly like it when you do that and it ends in a jump scare and a death. As you pick up more and more clues, you find out your character is a very disturbed person. I won't say too much because I don't want to be a spoiler, but you can tell he's kind of disturbed. One other minor criticism I have that doesn't really bother me, but might bother some people, is the main menu does take a little bit long to load up. However, once the main menu is loaded up, there's very little load times involved in the game at all. Usually it just loads up immediately. The one exception is when you paint a part of the painting, it'll load in a new area, and sometimes that takes a moment. Another thing I like about this game is the fact that it actually has a story, as compared to other horror games that are just kind of, ooh, spooky stuff. In a world where we get nothing but Five Nights at Freddy's clones, it's nice to see a game that's different, and it's a breath of fresh air to see a game that doesn't rely completely on jump scares. Also, I like it that this game doesn't have some stupid shit where you just progress with more and more enemies appearing and having more and more challenge added to it. I don't like Five Nights at Freddy's or Five Nights at Freddy's clones, and I'm glad to say that I really like this game. The puzzle solving, the atmosphere, the gloom, the isolated feeling, everything just makes it work. I'd say if you were interested in Murdered Soul Suspect a couple months back when it was free, then I definitely recommend downloading this, because it has much of the same investigative feeling to it, albeit with a completely different setting and different gameplay. Other than that, I recommend you download this game while it's still free. I might also be getting the DLC later on, which of course isn't free, but I really like this game, so... Other than that, I hope you've enjoyed this little review. This has been Fugitive Redeye, and you have a great rest of the day.
You take forever to say nothing.
Subscribe to Fugitive Redeye.